Welcome to our podcast offerings, where we invite you to take responsibility for your own well being, reclaim your energetic sovereignty, embody authentic living, and come home to your true self. We are two sisters, two oceans apart. Maya Lotz from the Energy for Life Wellbeing Practice, and Sandy Lotz Weiner from the Inspired Life Coaching Practice. Together, we bring you the Ocean of Abundance podcast and lots of possibilities to engage with when you choose to align with the wisdom of nature. On this podcast, in our respective and combined well-being practices, as well as in our daily lives, Sandy and I follow what we've coined the FERN approach. FERN is our acronym for the 4 pillars of support embedded in our integrated lifestyle approach: fascia and trauma informed, yoga inspired, Reiki empowered, and nature infused. The acronym is indeed also a homophone for the plant fern and how we visualize unfurling into well-being with the support of our fern lifestyle approach on your embodied journey home to your true self. Cultivating presence is a foundational element of our fern lifestyle approach and a key to living in the here and now with gratitude and humility. In this episode, Sandy and I talk about Gassho, as it is known in the Reiki world, or Anjali mudra as per the yogic landscape. While it is a simple gesture, the bringing of 2 hands together in front of the heart can serve as a stepping stone on our daily path towards finding an intentional and mindful practice that addresses our whole being: body, the vessel; mind, the navigator; emotions, the weather; and spirit, the compass. Let's take a few minutes to experience our fern lifestyle approach version of this practice together now, before we immerse into the podcast. As you take a moment to settle in for our short practice, I'd like to share a quote by SIRPA GUNN from the Soul Tree Yoga and Reiki practice in New Zealand, and I recommend you follow the link in our show notes and read the whole blog post, Gassho, More Than a Gesture, at your leisure, for her wonderful insights into this practice. Her quote is, "Gassho is not just a gesture, it is a doorway into stillness, connection, and the limitless energy of the universe." So take a moment now to check in and notice how you are feeling. Find a comfortable position and bring your hands together in prayer position at the center of your chest. You may like to give your hands a firm squeeze as a sign of gratitude for yourself showing up here and now. Now allow your palms to soften and gently touch, with your fingers pointing upward, and leave a slight gap in the center of your palms. Your gaze is downward or your eyes are closed. Focus your attention entirely on the point where the middle fingers touch, or, if you prefer, the space between the palms. Breathe naturally. Notice what you notice. And if your mind wanders, that's perfectly normal. It's a passing thought, a passing cloud, as it were. Just guide your attention back to the point where your fingers touch, or to the space between your palms. And let's rest here for a moment longer. Now gently return. Open your eyes, lift your gaze, and check in again. And notice how you're feeling after this little micro practice. Welcome, Sandy. I'm so grateful we are here together again to explore and share aspects of our fern lifestyle approach with our listeners. How did that practice feel for you? And are you ready to unpack the practice of two hands coming together?
Morning, Maya, and thanks for having me on. Yes, I am ready to unpack. And I did enjoy this simple but very effective approach of bringing hands together and just sitting in the moment and notice what you notice. And so, one of the things I noticed was my little left shoulder is talking to me. And I don't think I would have noticed that if I went into busy, if I didn't have this quiet moment. So thank you for that.
And that's exactly why I wanted to go back to the bringing two hands together. We've used it before, and I think from here on, perhaps we can use it every time we start a podcast because it's such a simple practice. It's something we're familiar with. Everyone knows what prayer position means. Sure, some people may have stories related to that, but drop the stories because we're about to tell you that there's a lot happening when the two hands meet in your body and in your nervous system and in your fascia. And what I like about it is we talk about lifestyle approach. We want to move away from needing props or special equipment. We want to tap into our innate body wisdom. Hands are always with you, and your hands are already an extension to your heart and your lungs. And you may have noticed that as you gathered your hands to place them in front of your heart, you took a nice deep breath in without me needing to cue you. And when you connect those thumbs to the sternum, you're dropping into what we refer to in yoga as your heart center, bringing the mind down to that beautiful, compassionate center. The Fern approach is all about not trying to remember tools or carry equipment with you, but cultivating a lifestyle where simple, gentle acts, practices that you make part of your routine, like brushing your teeth every day, become your friend and a way of befriending self and your body's innate wisdom.
I think the fact that the Gassho is such a small practice makes us overlook the value of it. I think that's just me or normal, maybe human nature, that it's got to be big to have an effect. And sometimes the smallest adjustments, as we know on a yoga mat, can make the most major change to the experience. And this to me is that reminder again that don't overlook the quiet things, the small things where you're going to notice, where you're going to be in deep conversation with your intuition or with your body's wisdom. You're probably not going to be in a very deep conversation when we keep on being very busy, like in a supermarket mall. Because we live in a busy world, we have to cultivate this stillness within. And like you said about the brushing of the teeth, you don't really have to think about it after a while, just like we don't think how to drive a car if we've done it for a long time. But because of the repeated practicing over and over, it is in our cellular memory. So it's there. You don't have to hold onto it in your headspace. It's in your body. But the only way the body speaks to us is either through pain, unfortunately, or when we communicate with it in like a two-way stream. But we have to quiet down. And the other thing about the two hands that I picked up was we have two of them. The one is for giving, for doing. The other one is for receiving or getting, letting in. And we need to balance that out. And we live in a very doing society because that's what gets the applause, or that's how we've been conditioned. And so this is that moment where we once again remind ourselves it's okay to just be the small things, because I think the smaller practices are sustainable. And that's really what I, in my life, are looking for, incorporating things that are going to be doable, measurable, achievable, sustainable, and then hopefully build on it and portable. So ticks all my boxes.
What came to mind when you were sharing that was a poem by Mary Oliver called Instructions for Living a Life. Just 4 lines. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. But in my research to link the two hands representing something different, your right hand is other and left hand is self. So it's that interconnectedness. So if we symbolically represent it, and of course, yin and yang. So it is that coming together in yourself, doing our daily practices have greater ripples out into the world. And the other thing that it cued me to something that I was reading, because we talk about fascia and trauma informed, a whole lot of things happen when we touch our hands together. And yeah, we have 6 times more nerve endings in the fascia. It's our richest sensory organ. And so when the left and the right hand meet, we create a sensory feedback loop. It's like you're saying to yourself in that gesture of placing your hands on your chest and the palms together, here I am, I've showed up. It links to our proprioception, our ability to sense where we are in space and time. And as we age, we can lose that sense of how we move and how we are and where we are in space and time. And that's often why people start looking down at their feet when they're walking and then walk into something. We become more aware of where we are in space and time through regular practices. We can improve our proprioception again. So there's so much happening. And the other thing you referred to as well was the busyness of our lives and the fact that we're constantly in front of screens. And so our whole posture is sort of rounded and folded inwards. And when we extend our arms and then bring the hands together, the spine lifts and lengthens. And I saw a reference to Tom Myers talking about the fascia lines, the arm lines. And there's just so much happening. We're not fascia experts. We've put JOANNE AVISON in the show links and Tom Myers for you to refer to. But it's just wonderful to know that the simple act of bringing two hands together would, as Sandy said, balance being and doing, could symbolically mean I bring other and self together. I connect with my own body, show up for myself, and also I take a nice deep breath. And how the fascia, if you want to go and read about it more in the linked article, actually then cues the body and the nervous system begins to calm down and we connect front and back body. And your shoulder tension, that's why you noticed it. That was also a reference there, that when we do that, we can actually begin to cue the neck and shoulders to relax. So if you held Gassho for a little longer, you actually may be able to settle that shoulder tension.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Many things are coming up for me. Let's go back to the shoulder thing. As a woman in her 60s, staying active and being moving in the world, being exercising, that type of thing. I am very leg orientated with walking, and then we can also get in our heads a lot. But the shoulder part or the upper body, like you were saying, when we age, is really, really important. It's always important, but it's one of those places where we can see aging, like, really quickly. And it's smaller muscle groups, so it takes more attention to kind of work that area and give it enough airplay, so to speak. So unless we do things that brings our attention to the shoulder section, the chest, the upper arms, the neck, we won't probably, because when people think, oh, I need to go out and get exercise, they go for a walk, which is great. But we need to get to the stillness. We need to focus on the shoulder area for posture, for breathing, for upright, for balance. It becomes more important as we age. It also has to do with, like you say, the spatialness of being able to move your body from side to side or rotate your spine, right? And so, yeah, I like that the two hands coming together can give you all of those awarenesses simultaneously, whether it is what do I have to do for my body type to make it more comfortable, to my two hands are coming together and it's about other, but it's also about me and it's in equal parts, right? And in that quietness that we're creating with a check in, we are honoring our own intuition and we're listening to the wisdom. It's not an outside in story, it's an inside out story. And we're also acknowledging that it's okay just to check in with ourselves, just to slow down, just to find out what needs to shift in this moment for me. And yeah, there's so much there. Oh, the other thing was the tactile thing, the sensory perception. Most of us are tactile. And so we've lost that too in our digital age or in our busyness. And so sometimes when we become aware of it, we want to be more creative. But creativity needs quiet. Creativity needs space to blossom, to bloom, to, you can plant the seeds, but you got to wait. And so you need to cultivate a stillness on a daily basis. And it can sprout differently for us. What I've been noticing is lately for me, the creativity is coming through in the kitchen. It's like you're always cooking, but if you're always cooking to get to a point or to get through the cooking session, you don't experiment. It's lovely to have the time or to create that space in your life to actually play with recipes or to discover a new way of doing something in your kitchen, same person. And it has to do with slowing down. And I think the fern approach, the practices, all of that plays into creating the canvas so that we can actually paint something different.
I think you mentioned amazing things there. And I mean, the hands are what you create with. So you bring the tool for creating to your heart, and the mind needs to settle for creative thoughts to come up. And this slowing down, we are so unused to it because everywhere we go, we are surrounded by a lot of busyness, and there are many of us on the planet, and there's a lot of noise internally, externally, because of all the stimulation. And even when we go for a walk or a cycle or a run, we are often still clutching our phones or listening to a podcast. That's what we're saying with the stillness. When are you not plugged in and on? And I have nothing against using a guided audio to stimulate your practice. In fact, we have a free downloadable one on our website. But the more you work with that, hopefully over time, you learn to be okay with just yourself. Because I think we've become so unused to just being still and with self. And we also fear, perhaps, that when we slow down, we'll achieve less, where in fact, we are a lot clearer, a lot calmer, a lot more discerning. And I notice, and I now speak from engaging with these practices, that often we think we're very busy and we did a lot. But if you notice and you scan back through your day, you'll see how much time was just noise, as they say. And with practices like this, when you are more centered, more grounded, because bringing those hands together grounds you into your body. It's tactile, as you say, it's a safe gesture. It comes from self. No one's telling you to do it. There's also nothing to fix here. And we start with micro. Micro is very important in the world of fascia, in the world of fern, and all the practices we talk about, as is gentle. So learning to gauge enough pressure, not too much. We want to glide and flow. We've heard that expression, flow like water, but we don't want to be coming down like torrential rain. We want to flow. And so fascia also likes touch. It likes silence. And it likes you to linger. And when you linger, it can shift and change and release and transform many things in body, mind, spirit, emotions.
That is so beautifully said. And if you think about it, if you're over the age of 50, I think one of the main goals would be to be able to move like water for longer. Um, and how do you do that, right? By slowing down. And I think you're talking to that fear of that we're not going to get stuff accomplished. There's that fear that really is real because when we start slowing down, I notice for myself that that comes up. I'm not going to be as productive, which means I'm not going to get stuff done. And you know what that also brings up for us? Well, it's just an awareness that that is kind of true. I mean, it's a hard one to acknowledge, but not all of my ambitions, not all of my dreams, not all of my hopes and wishes will come true. That's just how life is. But instead of going into an anxiety or a fear that I'm going to run out of time, because that's one way of going there, and sometimes we do, and then hence the bucket lists and the, what people are doing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that comes from a I'm going to run out of, right? Instead of going that way, if we stay with what's present, then this is the juiciest moment. And we have to address loss and grief. That we are going to get older, and certain things that I did do in my 20s is not coming up for me now as a sustainable activity. So if I keep on being busy, I don't have to look at those parts, but I'm also not going to experience the joy of this inner peace and harmony of just being present with what is, because we know that this is the moment. This moment we are in right now is the only one that I can mold, experience, capitalize on. So if I'm not present here, I'm not going to be present in the next one, or the next one, or the next one. The other fear for me would then be that if I'm not present, I'm not actually with myself. And I'm not sure if you want to choose a fear, which one would be saddest, right? Not being productive or not experiencing my life? Which one? What am I going for here? not living my own life, being present in it, or not achieving.
Well, one, this is the Ocean of Abundance podcast. And and our website's called Lots of Possibilities for a reason. And that is because the dominant paradigm has been structured towards the scarcity mentality. So we squirrel and we run and we dash, and it's often to achieve materialistic things or achievements, as you said, things, but very rarely do we pause to ask ourselves, how do I want to feel today and for the rest of the days that I am graced with a life here? We look into the feelings. I think whether you are 6 or whether you are about to turn 60 like me or in your 70s or 90s, I think we all want love. I think we all want joy. I think we all want a sense of calm and ease and grace. Sure, we want to also remain curious like the 6-year-old and experience new things. But how does that make me feel? And when we begin to work with feeling, now we're referring to hands and senses and emotions and fascias involved in body and emotions. What state do we want our mind to be in? I don't think anyone wants a crazy, foggy mind, but we've all had it and we've all run around in circles. So that thing of fear versus love. I mean, Fern for us is very much about we know we've had anxious moments in our life, experienced trauma. What does it feel like to walk a path of love? Also, you mentioned grief. And in the world we live, there's place for living. We've forgotten that a part of the natural cycle is death. And it's hard, and we feel deep emotions. And there is nothing to fix. When a person's loved one dies, those emotions are valid. If you wake up and you feel yucky because you had a bad night's sleep or your tooth is aching or your shoulder talks to you, can you love that person? The one who's heartbroken because their child, their mother, their sister, their husband passed, or they lost their job, whatever transition, or because you are emotionally just not in a great place, or physically you might have a challenge. Can you pause a moment and have compassion for self? Because if you can't, you're going to have very little compassion for anyone else during the day. And I speak from self journey here. When we get frustrated or we get angry or we're talking about them and what they did, those days I probably didn't check in with self. But when I am aware of self and willing to be with self in my mucky, messy, and my best moments, then I'm showing up for myself and cultivating presence. And no, you can't go back. And no, you can't rush forward. You only, as you say, have now. And I heard something beautiful recently. Today is the tomorrow you were worrying about yesterday, and all is well. I heard that on JOANNE AVISON's recent podcast. I think that is an exquisite quote.
It is. And for me, it sums up that whole thing about this moment is the only thing that really exists. I mean, this moment is the only real moment. If you think about meditation, even when we do the Gassho, right? If I'm saying, okay, bring my hands together, I'm still doing, right? I'm in the moment. I'm not just being, I'm still doing. The next thing would be if you come to a point where you are just breathing. And that's really what being in the moment is. But we have to first get to the mat or get to the chair and then get to the hands together. So it's a process, is what I'm saying. The fact that you're just sitting on the chair doing the mechanical part of it, that's the path to being able to actually capitalize on the being part of in the moment, which is another drop. And that's where the magic happens, right?
And I'll make a nature link here. So a day or two ago, I looked out the window and I noticed that there was a new shoot on a coastal oak tree, and the little bud at the top had a little blush, like a little pinky blush of the new leaf, and there was a little creeper wound around it. And I thought this is actually a beautiful image to capture. I was distracted. Someone came into the room. I forgot about it. And then I stood doing the dishes today and I noticed, it's grown since then. It's changed. It isn't the same as that moment where I spotted that little pinky blush in the morning light. I mean, I can take a photograph of it now, but it's not what caught my eye. And that is life. This moment isn't the next moment. Things change in the blink of an eye. The only thing you live is this moment right now.
Right. This moment, this breath. Enjoy it. And that is so hard for us, right? Because the mind is going to start telling us those stories, or, yeah, it's going to pull us forwards, backwards, out of ourselves. And then if we're not aware of that, then that's how behavior becomes a habit, right? Habits become behavior and lifestyles. And then you are just this person who always has a cell phone in their hands. How did that happen? Because before cell phones, you didn't do that. And I'm not blaming cell phones. Yeah, I'm just using that as it's kind of 99% of us are probably, talking about cell phones and technology. And that doesn't mean we throw them away. It's just to be aware that habits are just a disciplined or a devoted practice that I do regularly until it becomes second nature. And so we have choice. Do I want to make that a habit? Or do I want to make something else a habit, like your example of watching this shoot out of a tree blossoming? If you didn't take a Polaroid snap, now I'm dating myself, that moment is gone. Because the next moment looks different, not better or worse, just different. And the noticing what I noticed was in that moment that you saw it. Doesn't mean you have to take a photograph. It just means just memorize it, because this is the moment and there's no two moments that are similar. That can be scary if you go there, or it could be illuminating if you go there, because it basically says, this too shall pass. And we like that phrase when something's bad. We don't like to acknowledge that when we're in joy or we're sitting in bliss. It's flip sides of the same coin. And that's not to scare us. That's to make us more appreciative of the moment we're in so that we can fully enjoy it and live it and be present. That knowledge enriches our experience. And there's no ways that you would have been able to see that if you were rushing through your day. Would not have happened.
And I think interesting, you mentioned technology there. So we're not demonizing technology. If it wasn't for technology, my sister and I wouldn't be on this podcast, and we wouldn't have been able to continue our relationship across vast distances. So, but we are talking about conscious, not even but, and we are talking use technology Use your discernment when using it. Make time for unplugging. So we're talking about conscious consuming. Choice. Do I need to do this? Is this the best way that I can spend my time? Cultivating presence when you choose what to do with your day, hour, and sometimes you just want to chillax and listen to good music or watch your episode or whatever it is. That's a choice. But when you become more aware of self through the practices, then I see how it shifts for me. You know, phone is an object of convenience. And in my life, lived through work experiences where I had to have the phone on all the time and respond to messages. And then my lifestyle changed. And I also realized I actually don't need, like in some countries, a law to be passed to say an employer may not contact me when it's after hours or on a weekend. I actually get to decide that for myself. Because I work with people one on one or in small groups, I have my phone on silent because I don't want pings or pops disturbing my session with a person. I also spend a lot of time outdoors and I don't always want my phone there. And over time, people who know me, yeah, once or twice I had to have the uncomfortable conversation. And I just basically educated people as to what works for me. Leave me a voice message, leave me a text, preferably on WhatsApp, and I will get back to you when I can offer you full presence, because I don't want to communicate with you when I've got one foot on the train or I'm driving. I should be focusing on my driving. Never mind should. I'm driving. Can I drive now and be aware of the traffic? And I haven't really seen a problem. Now that the people who get to know me know, I will respond to the message. Now we're no longer having fears about, oh, she's gaslighting me. No, I was just on the beach cycling my bike for 2 hours. And it definitely wasn't catching up with news or your messages. I was enjoying watching the seagulls, the mommy and the daddy and the young one. I was enjoying the wind in my hair and the ocean waves. And that's when I'm choosing self. And then later, when I see your message, I respond to you. I'm fully present to you, which is the greatest gift I can give you.
I love that. I love how you explained that to us, Maya, because we often respond from a conditioned way of should be responding, right? And so the reminder that we have the choice, I think, and the responsibility really to self govern how we want to use these digital technologies in our lives, how much, how little. I'm going to equate this with there's a lot of food in the world, there's a lot of nutrition available, but we all decide what's best for our bodies. And then we communicate that. If somebody invites you to say, do you have any dietary restrictions? And then you say, if you're honest, I'm allergic to shellfish. And then they either can accommodate you or they can't. So it's about communicating. And then, as you say, if I'm going to tell somebody I have gluten intolerant, then I might have to educate them around that. Or I might have to make an adjustment for myself by bringing my own meal. It's not dissimilar with technology. It's the same thing. And you're right. When we are present with people, that's what they want from us. I'm not fixing, doing, I'm present for them. And especially in the type of work that you're doing, people want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, they want to be heard. And when I'm absent minded, I can't really be present with a human being with feelings to read their body language, to understand what they're not saying to me. What is this? Where's this coming from? If you're the receiver of that, which means your friend is not responding to your text in your timeline, I think there's a reminder there that unless I clarified, now this is once communication, unless I clarified with you why you didn't do it, I'm making up a story. And that's what the mind does. In the absence of facts, it creates fantabulations. We do it the whole time. So if we're present enough with ourselves, you would say, hey, wait on, Sandy. Do you know that's true? She's ignoring you. Did I just make that up? Or is that a fact? Unless I've asked you why you didn't respond, I'm making this about me for starters, but then I'm also making up a story. And sometimes we just have to question those thoughts that come up. You know, the same thing goes for when people think everybody's watching. No, most people are busy living their lives. So when someone's not answering your call, there's a reason, but you need to find out before you make the story.
Yeah, and I think that the thing with phones and technology, we have spoken about this before. Again, the kind of dominant paradigm we've been in, we start treating everything like an emergency. We behave like the 2-year-old toddler throwing a tantrum. I want to know now and I want it now. And that is just socialization. We live our life from this state of emergency, this activated flight stage all the time, where actually it's not an emergency when you want to find out if your friend wants to come to dinner. If she doesn't respond within a reasonable time, maybe reach out again. Maybe something's happened to her, sure. And also, just from a fascia point of view, what we spoke about there about presence. When we quieten down, the fascia knows the thought before you are aware of your thought. And the same of when you're interacting with another person. When you learn to cultivate presence with yourself through a daily practice like Gassho, you learn to do that with others, because before the mind registers the body language, the fascia has already picked up a lot of messages. And we tap into this body wisdom to work with the fascia. And you mentioned communication there, and previously we mentioned that when we communicate, that it's an act of being vulnerable. And vulnerability is something else that we're not comfortable with in our modern life. We put on the masks, we pretend we're okay with things, we don't say no when we need to say no, boundaries, that's very common dialogue at the moment. I've experienced it, I've lived it. But by being vulnerable and saying, thank you for the dinner invitation, but I become very overstimulated. I would rather have a cup of coffee with you alone, or a small group works better for me. That's my need. Now I've given the other person an opportunity to get to know me better, and also to pick up with the stories. I mean, is it true? Is it mine? And that also led me to Gassho as a way of stillness that could lead into a meditation practice. We've all tried meditation practices where we try and quieten the mind. So what we do here when we touch the fingers and we give the mind a space to focus on, 2 middle fingers touching, or the space between the hands, the act of the gesture, is we give the mind a supportive thing to focus on to help it. But if you think you're going to quiet the mind, you're going to struggle. You're going to find the stillness and the pause through bringing the body into stillness and pause. And then the mind can kind of go, oh, this is not so bad.
While you're explaining that and demonstrating that for us with a mind, having a mind of its own type, so to speak, what we are doing with the stillness practices, the Gassho, the looking within, maybe our job is to be the sheepdog. We need to corral the mind in the direction we want to go, or we need to just observe it and make sure that it doesn't take us over the edge of the cliff. You're not controlling it, but you are molding it a little bit. Yeah, okay, don't go there. Come back from that cliff. That's a falling over the cliff kind of thought. This one may be too far out there to. And you can only do that if you're aware and observing. And you only need to intervene when it goes to the extremes, right? You just need to observe.
So I have developed this habit of actually engaging with that insecure one. Well, let's talk shadow here. And then for some people, shadow, that word feels like it's ominous, which is not. And then I read a quote where Rumi said something like, it is the unknown friend you need to get to know. And so now when we say don't fix anything, say I get a dinner invitation. There is the anxious me speaking, I don't want to go. How am I going to say no? And I have actually learned to respond to her, not shush her, because shushing her means sometimes I will go through with something that doesn't serve me or that I avoid something that could have been wonderful. So I pause and I address. You can call it inner child, you can call it shadow, or the unknown friend that you're getting to know. Why are you insecure about this? Oh, I notice you're insecure about it. I'm here. And I put my hand on my heart. So I'm not doing Gassho. That thought might pop up because I'm walking in the forest. Karen's invited me for dinner. I really enjoy her company. Always turn down the dinner invitations. And then this little voice pops up. And I've learned to address that voice and say, I know this is an uncomfortable situation. I'm here. And then I look at what is mine there. Where does that come from? Is it valid? Is it a story I'm telling? Is it a real need? Is this a moment where actually I will go, but only for a short while? We've often mentioned that, just better boundaries, discernment.
I think it's probably the only way we learn compassion, by looking at the shadow side, or by not pulling away from the hard emotions, the difficult emotions, or the difficult transitions like loss, grief. In those moments, there's a wealth of knowledge to gain. It's not why it happens, but it has happened. But it can only be harvested if we sit with what's coming up. And so that knowing that I have to be compassionate to my little anxious self and how I'm going to speak to her. Well, first acknowledge that she's showing up and not shushing her, because that's probably our first instinct. Go away, right? And so welcoming her for showing up and then making it safe for her to express the feeling or what's going on, and then speaking to her in a compassionate way, which when I refer to her, it's me, but it's my younger version or my less evolved version. But she's part of me and she's going to show up. We're adults with little kids inside of us. And some of that little child hasn't fully healed. And so when she does show up, she needs attention. I mean, we know that. Everything that you ignore is going to come back. The feeling you ignore that you don't want to address will come back, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point. It will go away for a while. The nagging thing in the back of your mind will come back because it's got information for you. There's an opportunity here to learn and to grow from it. And you can do it at your own pace. I'm not saying you have to address everything. Thank goodness the body is smart enough not to let us experience everything at once. It kind of reveals the pieces as the wisdom of the body knows that we can handle it. When people go through really big traumatic things, they're numb for a while for a reason. They cannot handle the enormity of what's happened. So it unveils in pieces. Same on this level. That little girl will not stay for a week. She'll show up sporadically, but she's still there. And that gives us another opportunity to be compassionate. So what you've just described there is the most compassionate way to address an insecurity and make a sound adult decision around your choices.
There is a child within, and the child needs you to make it feel safe. And when you place your hand on your heart, or you put your hands in Gassho and several other practices, respond to the question she has or the comment she makes with compassion, you can help her feel safe. And it made me also think of there's quite a lot written about how practicing Gassho or using Anjali mudra, touching hand to heart, is trauma informed because it's learning to make self safe, not needing a prop or an outer activity. And I was also chuckling because I was thinking we spoke about conscious consuming, and I do not like shopping, and I do not like fitting clothes in cubicles or going into shopping malls even. And recently I saw a dress through the window and I loved it. And that's kind of how I shop. The item shouts at me, I'm over here, you love me. And then I investigate and then I say, I could have this. Do I really need it? And then I go from there. And the assistant said, oh, you can go into the cubicle and change. And I said, I won't, but could I return it tomorrow if it doesn't fit? Um, and she said, oh, no, of course, no problem, because I know me. By the time I'm in the cubicle and I've got all the clothes on and I've dealt with a strange environment, a confined environment, and all the lights, the next step is meltdown, and now I no longer want it. But if I can take it home and take my time with it, and I was giggling because I've said before, I have a nervous system like a gecko. If you reach your hand too fast, it's gone. But I recently found a better analogy: bird watching. I love bird watching. Actively engaging with it now. And you can't observe a bird or pause and listen to the bird song if you yell, scream, and shout. And you can't notice the bird if you pounce forward. And you're always bird watching. Your nervous system is the bird. And it is easily frightened and put off because it's always scanning. Get to know it. Get to know how sensitive it is. I've learned with mine. I'm not saying I can't do that action, but there's a reason that day I knew, not a good day today to do this. I'm not saying I never do that. Um, I'm also I am quite curious and I'm interested in new things, but I also see that once I've acquired it, it's like it'll sit there for a while. I've got to get used to it a bit. And it's the same with ourselves. It's like when something comes up that is new, we want to move past the shock or past the grief or past the news. And the news could be joyful or it could be disastrous. But I need time with that. I need time to acclimatize and to really identify the bird. I need to observe it quietly. And that's what we do with Gassho. I see for myself how, with our practices and all the practices we offer, just to say here, make it your own. Follow the guidelines and then see how it shows up for you. Tweak it so that it suits you. It's like in the yoga world, we were obsessed with the aesthetics of the posture. And thank goodness we've arrived in a world where we're now more fascia and trauma informed. And we needed to learn about alignment and this and that and the other. But now we also realize no two bodies are alike. So show up in the posture so that it feels safe. Asana, rest easy, no forcing. And it's the same with the thought. A thought pops up and I've seen myself do it. And I go, oh, I shouldn't think that. And then I go, but you did. So what is it trying to tell you? What are you needing that that thought arose? Are you maybe tired now? Or does this scare you? By pretending it's not there, it doesn't go away. It's going to need to shout louder.
Love that. So much wisdom there. And the noticing what you notice can only happen when we quiet down, like doing a Gassho practice once or twice a day at least, or in the moment, noticing and then giving ourselves some self love by touching our chest with our hands. Yeah, we are also going to notice not just, I think there might be initially the resistance against the quieting down because we're scared of what can come in, the things I've been running from. But just think about the things that I have been ignoring that my soul is longing for, that it can also become part of your awareness. It's a two-way street, right? It's sure, I might have a thought that I don't necessarily wanted to have today, but it's bringing me a message that somewhere deep down that is going on. And how will I become aware of what is going on? Or how will I become aware of what's my deepest longing? What are the feelings, the emotions, the situations that I want to experience more of that will enrich my life?
So that is so beautifully said. And I think we're at a time where we need to wrap up. And there's so much we could say from the yogic world or from the traditional Chinese medicine aspect about what each finger means, and also from Reiki point of view about resting in our heart mind as opposed to the head mind. But I think we need to wrap it up, and we invite you to try it out. Begin and end your day with Gassho and notice what you notice. We have a free guided audio for you that you can download from the website. The link will be in the show notes. Just try that. And maybe notice what happens if you just rest a hand on your heart when there's a challenging moment, and see if you can use these micro movements and awareness practices to help create a sense of internal peace. I was reading a blog by STIENE about Gassho and Reiki, and I came across a quote he used from the book Reiki and the Benevolent Art of Healing by Tomita Kaji. Gassho is a method for naturally harmonizing the heart, mind, and body. And therefore, as one repeatedly engages in self-cultivation, they become harmonized and one can steady the power of the heart. And Franz had said earlier on, hopefully through lots of practice, we can experience this with our whole mind, body, and energy, and then we embody Gassho. Any final thoughts, Sandy?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for bringing this to the podcast, this topic. I thoroughly enjoyed the inspiration and the information. And I was wondering whether we would want to invite our listeners to maybe try the Gassho practice for 7 days, once or twice a day, and just see what happens, how you change, what comes up for you. We know that it is a daily approach or a daily discipline or a daily devotion. Anything we give energy to or attention to will grow. like with compound interest. So, yeah, explore and see whether this makes any difference to your state of being, and play with, what do I want to feel today? What do I want to experience today? See whether you can tap into the inner wisdom that comes up. What do I need to do for myself? Because that will be the compassionate way to use this practice to enhance your experience of your reality. And I look forward to following podcasts, see what the next topic could be.
Hatsureho, another Reiki practice. And the reason I chose it is it incorporates Gassho. There's breath work and a cleansing. And it's just interesting. Currently, many people are interested in breath work and going back to these ancient practices, noticing how it was there eons ago to rest into the body, to change your nervous system state basically with breath. And it's all in the practice of Hatsureho. So maybe we can unpack that next time. And again, just to say, you don't need to be a yogi. You don't need to be a Reiki practitioner. We draw on those practices because they are modalities that Sandy and I work with. Everything is fascia and trauma informed that we have incorporated in our Fern approach, and we always link it back to nature, as you could hear. It has been wonderful chatting to you about this, Sandy, and I look forward to our next podcast.
Absolutely. I wish you well until then, and thank you for today. I am looking forward to a beautiful next podcast.
Bye.
Bye bye.